Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Kathy Martinez, and I'm going to be helping out with the workshop this morning, as will Lori Clark be helping us out this morning as well. So thank you. This is Evaluating Lived Expertise Through Care and Compassion workshop. Today we will have a panel discussion featuring experts from various organizations as they share their approaches to caring for and compensating individuals with lived experience. You'll hear more about innovative compensation models, strategies for equitable pay, and the importance of recognizing and valuing lived experts in driving system transformation. Our panelists will discuss the challenges and successes of implementing these models, offering practical insights and actionable takeaways for organizations seeking to prioritize fairness and inclusion. So we hope that everybody will be able to get something from our session, and that you will be inspired in new ways to honor the voices that matter most and those of the lived experts. So with that, I will go ahead and allow our first presenters, Amy Zietz and Ariane Porras from San Diego YMCA, to go ahead and take it away. Thank you all.
Good morning, everyone. Ariane, maybe you and I can do our intros first, and then we'll jump into the slide. Do you want to go first?
Sure, that sounds good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ariane Porras. I am a Community Collaborative Director with the YMCA of San Diego County, and I manage a grant called Partners in Equity, aimed at integrating lived experts into child welfare reform. So making sure we are providing community-designed and community-led solutions to reform our child welfare system here in San Diego County. Happy to be with you all.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm Amy Zietz, Executive Director of Community Wellbeing at the YMCA, and have had the privilege of working with Ariane and our larger community engagement and wellbeing team over here over the past 7 or 8 years. So really excited to share some of our history and learnings with y'all this morning. So we can go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so Ariane talked a little bit about Partners in Equity. I'll start about 5 years ago, actually probably 7 years ago now, at the very first state convening, before FFPSA was even rolling out. I don't know if anyone was down in San Diego for that initial inaugural prevention summit, but here in San Diego at that convening, we sort of a cross-sector group of folks sort of birthed this idea of aligning around a shared prevention definition, started to identify some strategies that did not exist, and sort of left that convening saying, like, this was really cool, but like, now what do we do? And the Children's Bureau the following week had an RFA. We applied with the ideas that came out of that summit and have led Partners in Prevention for the past 5 years. That is now transitioned to Partners in Equity, and fingers crossed we can keep doing equity work as we know how important it is to the communities we work with. During Partners in Prevention, we also were partnering very closely with the Childhood Obesity Initiative that is housed out of UC San Diego. And we helped them co-design with community members and launch what is now called a community council. So an advisory subcommittee that is made up exclusively of community members, with a compensation model, an emerging care model, but it started with a compensation model that's part of our learnings. And so we'll reference our learnings from that project. And then with those same partners, we now have what's called the Community Incubator Network, funded by the American Heart Association. It's focused on food justice, but when we talk about honoring lived expertise, we really hold that value across all of our portfolio of work. So we'll be referencing our experiences there as well. So we'll go on to the next slide. I am sure this is familiar to many of you who are doing community engagement work, but we have really grounded our evolution in this continuum. And what I'll share, because it might be similar for many of you, that where your own team or program or department is may be different than your organization. I don't know how many of you work with YMCAs in your own counties, but every YMCA is different. Ours here in San Diego, we have 14 traditional locations, 3 resident camps, and 4,500 employees. And so I would not say that our movement along this continuum looks the same across our entire organization, even though we drive towards that. So I just kind of frame our presentation today around that. In true honesty, I think we were between ignore and inform when we first started this work 10-ish years ago. And I would say that we are hovering between probably involve, collaborate, and defer to across our different projects. And so the reason I point that out is because I just want to, I think y'all probably know this, but community engagement and the internal infrastructure needed to do authentic and meaningful community engagement isn't always linear. And you're sometimes taking a few steps forward, a few steps back. And I think that iterative nature is really important to the process. So I'll go to the next slide, please. As we have done our care and compensation work, we have been grounded in some shared values, whether it be within our own department or with our partners. And at the sort of centered in all of our work is really authentically valuing and honoring lived experience as lived expertise. So you will hear Ariane and I talk a lot about expertise, that folks' lived experience by its very nature is expert. It's expert, and no less than an academic expert or a consultant expert. Really, the other piece that we hold in mind is that this work is disruptive. It should be disruptive. If we are doing things that have been done before without thinking about it, then we're probably perpetuating some inequities. So we're really attuned to looking at power structures and thinking about what are the ways that we are disrupting those. The heart of this work is relationship-based. I think we all probably know that in our work, trust is everything. And so that takes time. It takes intentionality. It takes strategy. It takes our own personal work to be aware of what are the things that we might be doing that are showing up in spaces that are not promoting authentic and meaningful engagement. I think it's really easy to talk about transparent and open communication, and I think it's really easy to not do it well. So I think we've had a lot of missteps along the way, making assumptions around things that we thought were sort of shared understandings, and we realized they weren't, and we had to repair harm. We also have learned that co-designing and sharing power from the get-go is really important. We are just getting started developing a new, I'm going to call it a parent partner program for right now, but that's not what it will be called. And we had one meeting and thought we shouldn't have any more meetings until we have lived experts sitting at this table with us before we do any more thinking. And then I think the last piece is just making sure that we have infrastructure built in, not only the relationships, but also the infrastructure for ongoing feedback. Like, it's one thing to say, let's be honest and candid with one another. It's another to have time set aside in every meeting to check in on how are things going? Have we had any misses? Have we had any oops and ouches that we need to attend to? So really building that into the infrastructure has been another important lesson learned for us. Okay, here is our care and compensation model. On the care side, we are thinking about, well, let me just actually go through and then I'll describe the care and the compensation pieces. So we're recruiting folks. I know there's some sessions later today. Hopefully they're not concurrent with this one, but if so, go back and watch them on recruitment, because I think recruitment is really important to be thinking about. When we say lived expert for particular projects, what do we mean? What perspectives are we hoping people bring? So recruitment, making sure that it's a equitably accessible process, that we don't just go to our usual suspects through our usual easy channels. I think that's really important. Engagement, and that is ongoing, right? So this is one of those things that is built into everything we do. It's in our communications, it's in our invites, and in how we set up our room. It's in what kinds of food we're offering at convenings. It's about how we're following up after meetings, how we're checking on folks when they're sharing and maybe get vulnerable, that we're leaning in to see how they are. So engagement, I think Ariana will probably give a lot of great examples when she jumps in here. We have pre and post sessions with lived experts when we have meetings where they are popping into professional settings. So I'm sure many of your communities have spaces that are largely community members and lived experts. And then you may also have spaces that are sort of facilitated by in professional settings by your child welfare services or by your nonprofit partners, and you're inviting lived experts in. Well, we have heard folks talk a lot about, well, how do you train your lived experts to participate? And we say, we don't train our lived experts. They're perfect just the way they are. We have to train our professionals to set the table for meaningful engagement. And so part of that feedback loop has been engaging with our lived experts ahead of meetings to go over agendas, to talk through history and context, to describe acronyms, to answer any questions that they may not want to ask in a large group. And then meeting with them afterwards to say, how did that go? How did it feel? Is there anything that could have gone better? And we've gotten feedback like, the meeting was fine, but I saw someone rolling my eyes when I was talking. Like, okay, well, how do we lean into that? How do we get that message to the facilitator? How do we right size the culture and community building that's happening in that full meeting? So without that post meeting, we wouldn't know those microaggressions that may be happening that impact folks' participation and experience.
Can I jump in real quick on that part?
Please,
Because I think, what it comes down to and what we've learned is that it's a slowing down of the process. Slowing down for us to understand, if we look at the spectrum of community engagement, and the involving part is really about the voice. So are we listening for what we want to hear? Or are we really listening for what this lived expert is sharing and wants to contribute? And then that's how we can really disrupt that hierarchy in showing them, because it is our approach in letting them know, like, you have value and we want to just bring that value into the space wherever you choose that space to be and however you choose to share it. So that's where the engagement really comes in the relationship building of like making sure that they feel seen and heard first, because then we can get into the technical aspects of pre and post meetings, right? Everything that we do is so, as professionals or as paid staff, is so automatic. And we're in such a different culture that we forget that slowing it down to explain the nuances to them and the whys as to why things have been done up to this point is important, because it's a way of disrupting. I mean, we're in this work, we're addressing systemic issues, right? We're saying, please weigh in on systemic issues. But if we don't address the own system that we're participating in as well, just in this culture, then it's not congruent. And so that's, I think, an important thing of slowing down to make sure that we're being conscious of how we're not only entering a situation, but presenting the information. And then what are things that we're missing, because our lived experts will let us know if we have spent the time engaging with them to understand, hey, we see you as an equal, but help us dismantle these things that get in the way of that.
There's a really good question in the chat as well.
Yes.
And it's, I think it's important to the comments that you're sharing with us, and maybe Kathleen and Jackie can frame up too. And that really is, what do you mean specifically by lived expertise? So the question is, with having lived expertise, is it only based on past experience? What are the experts doing ongoing to provide to current experience? So maybe just clarifying, because we're using that term and it's central to the presentation, how you understand that.
Definitely. And thank you, Alyssa, for asking this question, because I think it is important. I think we approach it in a few different ways, and Amy, please jump in if I miss something. But I think we first acknowledge that we prioritize lived experience over systems. So how you're experiencing this world and this system is the most relevant because it's going to help us make the change that is necessary. And then it's not only what happened in the past, but how has what happened in the past contributed to how you're experiencing things in the moment, and also what kind of future. This whole last year with the coalition, we spent dreaming about what do we want it to look like, so we know that what we're working towards and what we're looking forward to. So I think that's part of it. Amy, do you have more to add?
Yeah, I think specifically to the question around is it only based on past experience? Absolutely not. I think we have folks who, with a variety of closeness and rawness to their experience. So that can be either time or not time related, right? Like it could be 20 years ago, but still be really raw. I'm wondering if your question is also getting at, are we having folks inform things based on practices 20 years ago versus something that happened last week? I think if that is part of the question, we're trying to hold both of those and acknowledging that folks with open cases, like currently open cases, might not have time to be coming to a coalition meeting, right? There might be other priorities. So what I would say is that I think we've tried to put kind of a patchwork together in San Diego County, which is that the coalition, the Partners in Equity Coalition, is one space for community share perspectives. Our CAPC here in San Diego is called the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board. That's one space. We have work groups, one of which is Lived Expert Action Partners. And so that's also a space where lived experts. So we try to have, and then there's additional spaces outside of those, but we really try to have a diversity of opportunities for folks to share their perspectives. And what we also invite folks to do is share what they're hearing from their neighbors and their community members in real time. So like a very concrete example that we've heard through Partners in Equity is that there's a disconnect between practice and policy. Like what is in the Parent's Guide to Child Welfare on a paper is not the experience that humans are having today in certain communities. And that's coming from folks who are sitting in the room, but also folks who know folks who aren't in the room, but are in the room. So hopefully that helps articulate that. Okay, we can circle back if there's more questions on that. I want to keep us moving along. I just want to share on the compensation side. We have now set up, this took us a couple years to get here, but we provide gift cards, checks, stipends, and or honorariums. And then we've also done non-monetary compensation. So things like paying for folks to go to professional development or conferences, as well as like farm boxes or social emotional learning kits. So other things that are not just listed here. The last thing I just want to say before I hand it over to Ariane is when we think about the care side of this work, it's not always related to a meeting. So we do things like hosting our lived experts to an end of year lunch, or if they've done a presentation, we're celebrating at a dinner together. So we're doing like social connectedness things that are like the work has brought us together, but our relationships keep us together. And so we invest in things outside of just meetings that I think have been really important. With that, I'll hand it over to Ariane to talk through a few more of our details.
Yeah. So we have a few examples of the activities that we invite lived experts to participate in. We've shared we have a monthly coalition where people attend and are welcome in a in-person and virtual setting. We have different subcommittees like the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board that Amy described. That's our CAPC project here in San Diego. And any others that kind of come out of that. There's also work groups and task forces that are ongoing. Like right now, we're helping our Child and Families Wellbeing Department to restructure their set framework. Any surveys or poll, anytime we're asking for their time, we're compensating because we're taking the opportunity to say your time is valuable. So any listening sessions, obviously, you know, it's not just them coming, but anytime we're asking them to be in person, we're making sure the setting is comfortable and is providing for their needs. So are there snacks on hand? Are there fidgets? Are there things like that? So those are listening sessions that we'll invite them to. As Amy mentioned, capacity building is important too. If we're being trained in certain modalities and then we're the only ones holding that information and sharing it with the community, that's a way of gatekeeping and hierarchy. And so we disrupt that by saying, please join us and be in these conversations from the get-go with us so that you understand the frameworks that we're working off of and why we think it's important, right? So that's what we're hoping will lead to peer-to-peer education, because as Amy said, a lot of these things grow because of word of mouth, because our lived experts feel seen and heard and then invite people to be part of the conversation, which is what we want. Any panel discussions, any presentations that we invite them to collaborate with, and then project activities that are very specific. So anytime that we're asking for their time and space and thoughtfulness, we are compensating them. Any questions on that? I think we covered all the kinds of activities, but it is a variety.
Ariane,
As far as
can I ask a quick question? Sorry to
Sure.
interrupt you all. Can I ask just a quick question? I know
Please.
you mentioned various different activities, but are there any opportunities or offerings for some leadership development for any of the young people? I may have missed that.
We
If
have
I did, I
started
apologize.
to. No, thank
Okay.
you for asking that. We have started providing leadership models because, and I think this comes into this slide. When we talk about tiered and flat rate models, we acknowledge that some lived experts want to take a more active role. And so in our coalition specifically, we realize, table facilitation is important and we don't always have enough staff to attend because they're tending to their own grants and projects. And so we're making sure we're asking ourselves as we structure and organize these activities, is this a place where a lived expert can step in and have a leadership role or take a more active role? So we have started to do that. So right now it's just facilitation, but as we're starting different work groups aimed at the different activities for our grants, then we want to prepare them to lead this so that this work can continue beyond us. That's always the long-term goal for us is how can this live beyond this, allotted time? So some of the things that we do to support that are the clarity of expectations. We come from a lot of us are very, we train on trauma. And so we have a trauma-informed lens to things. And so we know that communication and being clear about what we expect from them is important. We want to set them up for success. What do you need to feel comfortable in this space? How do you like to learn? How do you like to, like for us to share information with you? What are the different styles that you approach things, right? And then addressing any barriers if needed. Because we have spent the time building these relationships where, they're more apt to share with us, well, this feels a little uncomfortable, or, when this happens, it's not great. And so we're like, okay, awesome. And we celebrate any time that people interrupt us to ask questions that are clarifying. We build that into our culture. Like, even if I say a word that is jargony or too big, they'll interrupt me and be like, what does that mean? And rather than getting like upset, I'm like, yes, thank you for pausing me, right? So we're like really encouraging that feedback loop into all of our practices. As I shared, we have tiered and flat rate models depending on the activity that we're asking them to participate in. Is it going to be ongoing? Is it going to be one time? What kind of role are you going to be taking in this space? And is that going to require you to have some prep time? Okay, we're going to account for that prep time and we'll compensate you for that. And even debriefing, right? And as always, just listening and listening and listening so that we have that CQI of continue to tweak things as we learn from our lived experts. I see another question, but I think we answered it. Joyce, did I answer that for you? Do we compensate them at a specific rate for participating in all meetings? So yes, this slide speaks to that as well. We have had several meetings about rate setting, and we actually just upped our rate and we went through a whole conversation about it because we do have different perspectives. We really think that like our strength lies in our diversity. And so we welcome all the perspectives on our team and from lived experts. And we really take into account a local context first, right? San Diego was just named the most expensive city in the country. So we want to take that into consideration. It is very expensive to live here and to survive here. So how does that implicate the rate that we're setting? Is this a livable wage, right? Considering that It's usually a one-time thing. Is this something that will actually be a help to this lived expert if they participate in this conversation? And we have had them share, they're like, oh, I use my gift card money to take my kids on special dates because it's like outside of my budget. And so this is just bonus money that I can do and have playtime with them. So that makes us feel good. Or, groceries, especially with groceries right now, it's an extra assist, right? The thing last that we have on here is that, we wish it was easier to give people money, and it's not. Our government requires tax implications. And so we are very transparent with our lived experts. At our last meeting 2 weeks ago, we shared with them, okay, it's the beginning of the year. We shared the plan for the year of things we're going to be focusing on. We shared the increased rate that we decided on. And we let them know this means that if you attend every meeting, you're going to hit the threshold where you're going to require to report on this money. And this is for anything that you participate within the Y, not just the monthly coalition meetings, but all of the list of activities that we shared in the previous slide. So we're very transparent with them. We let them know we cannot give you tax advice because we are technically your employer when we give you these stipends, but here are some resources where you can get free tax advice for, the amount of money that you receive. So we tell them this is the threshold, this is how much you should expect to get if you attend all the meetings. These are the surplus, and these are resources that can help you navigate these decisions. And we give them options. These are your options for engaging. We won't be offended if you say no, if you just don't want to reach that threshold. We won't be offended if you want to come and just volunteer. Like, we're as transparent as possible and provide clarity on the things that we know. And we try to just keep that communication ongoing throughout the year with them.
Ariane, can I add just 2 things before you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
The first thing I'll say around local context, in addition, is that we actually, for the past 3 years, have been rate setting with partners because we did not want to create competition. So we sat down together, and I mean, when we started this 3 years ago, we landed on $25 an hour. And why it took and we're now at $30 an hour, but that took a long time because we had to like right size what's everybody's budget. How does this impact your sustainability? What activities are you compensating at what amount? Who's doing flat rate? Who's doing a tiered rate? So I just want to highlight that we have not done this in isolation because we want folks to be, we want it to be equitable, and we want folks to have meaningful opportunities to participate that's not driven by different levels of revenue. So I think that I'm really proud that we've done that because I think it's the right thing to do. And then the other thing I'll say on the self-sufficiency, livable wage standards, we have been constantly exploring what else we can do besides just an hourly or a tiered rate. We looked into employment options. We looked into stipends and honorariums that, are sort of set by quarter or every 6 months, just to create more opportunities for stability. And so I think from oh my goodness, what is wrong with me right now? Self-sufficiency perspective. I think that's just important to like right size to what individuals' needs are. Like, we want people to be able to budget. It's great if you can just have extra money for a date, but if folks are relying on this for income, we thought it was just really important to be to have some diverse options for folks.
And also taking into consideration, what does your agency hold as a livable wage, right? And is that in alignment with your project? And so what are ways that you're going to need to advocate for these things is important as well. Next slide. Sure. Okay, so lessons learned. Building trust takes time, right? We move at the speed of trust, and that is not rushed ever. We know that folks, have and continue to be affected by systems in a negative way. And so we are very transparent with, like, we don't expect you to trust us. We just ask that you give us a chance to show you who we are and how we want to approach this thoughtfully. Flexibility is incredibly important as well, because I think in the conversation that we were having beforehand about listening, like, every individual is different and everyone is coming at this from past and current experience that is very unique. And so how can we be flexible in adapting to the needs of these lived experts? Problem solving with innovation, like, so making sure that we're saying, well, what do you think is a good option here? And working with them, not just putting it on their plate, but really inviting that conversation. And like Amy said, we do as much of this work collaboratively, not only with our lived experts, but with other partners, because we've been really intentional about wanting this to be a culture in San Diego, right? We want all of our partners, and that's what our initial project Partners in Prevention was about, is convening us as partners to realize what are the barriers here for families and how can we start addressing these issues without putting that labor on them. So creating and documenting this process has been important for us because we want to share these lessons learned, and we want to collaborate with other folks on how do we do this better? How do we continue to do this so it's a sustainable model for our county? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Ariane. So we really appreciate the insights and thank you for taking the questions midstream through your presentation. We definitely appreciate that. So now we're going to go ahead and transition over to Kathleen Von Antwerp and Jackie Flores Ortega from Ventura Partnership for Safe Families and their CAPC, or their Child Abuse Prevention Council. So I will go ahead and pass that over to you all. And again, just a reminder, please post your questions in the chat and we'll take it from there. So thank you, Kathleen. And
Thank you, Kathy. And thank you for having us today. We're excited to be here and share our program and the work that we do. I'm Jackie Flores Ortega. I'm the coordinator for the Parents Voices program for the Partnership for Safe Families and Communities, also known as the partnership, or the CAPC, which you might hear through the rest of the presentation. And the partnership has been in existence for over 40 years and has always been the convener for all agencies, programs, and community-based organizations to come together to link, lift, and leverage our community. And the partnership has always fostered parent leadership since the beginning. I just want to take a minute to let our executive director also introduce herself. Kathleen, do you want to say hello?
Yes, thank you, Jackie. Hello, everyone. We're so excited to be here and to be in collaboration and conversation and having one mind. I'm Kathleen Van Antwerp. I'm the Executive Director of the Partnership for Safe Families and Communities, and it is genuinely an honor to work side by side with so many of our community members that are people with lived expertise and experience and ready to come to the table and really help us inform our policies and our family servicing agencies. So we're excited to be here. There were a few questions in the chat, and we will make sure to also respond as we move through our deck so we can expound upon what our colleagues in San Diego shared.
Thank you, Kathleen. So we want to remind our community that the Ventura County Parents Voices is a program of the partnership, and the partnership's mission is to promote a community committed to safe, healthy, peaceful families. The Parents Voices supports and lifts that mission by following our core goals, which is to create a system change based on lived experience. We offer equal opportunity to a diverse group of parents with lived experience and for their voices to be heard. And we recognize the importance of our parent leaders using resilience, which is a protective factor, and providing resources to strengthen families. And then lastly, empowering our parents to the best of the version of themselves in order to maintain a safe, healthy, peaceful family. Next slide. And Kathleen.
So, thank you, Jackie. So in some of Jackie's description there of our core team, it does lend itself to respond to the question in the chat box about, with having lived expertise, is it only based on their past, and what are experts doing? Jackie mentioned a few words I wanted to lift, which is everything we do is based on the 5 protective factors, and parental resilience is one of them, as well as social connections. So we work very diligently to lift the 5 protective factors. And Parents with lived expertise or experience that work with our agency have what we call a cross sector of experience. And so we will share a slide coming up where you'll actually see them. But what we think makes it so exciting is that it may be a parent who's had lived experience, meaning that they have had the challenges to walk successfully with resilience and navigate family servicing systems. And that might be the child welfare system. It might be the juvenile justice system. It might be an element of educational systems or behavioral health or public health. So within our parent voices, we really love that we have a cross sector of experts who can stand together and say, how do you need help? Because I was able to help my family successfully navigate that system. And here are some lessons that I can lend. So we talk about that in terms of defining what a person or a parent with lived expertise is in the work that we do. This slide also correlates a lot with what our group in San Diego shared. We take a very serious responsibility to understand the importance of resilience and what that looks like. It looks differently in all of us. And with the 5 protective factors, we know that all families have strengths and all families need support. And so we approach the work we do collectively with a lot of respect. And you'll see 2 boxes on the screen. One says support and one says sustain. And I'm just going to lean into the support box for a minute. We really focus on relationship-based versus compliance-based leadership. We really want to move away from checking off the box and saying, well, we want a parent at the table, but it's just a check the box or it's a token. We really say it's about building relationship and valuing the voices that come to the table. We want to authentically and consistently communicate to parents and families that you are valued, you belong, and you have purpose. We have a strength-based versus a deficit lens. So we focus on parental resilience, not seeing families as fragile or broken, but seeing them as strength-based. Adversity touches all of our lives. So we see parents of lived experience and expertise through understanding and relating versus judging or condemning, which historically it has always felt to families that it's a them versus us. And on the sustained side, the top line is the most important. San Diego talked about it, compensation, but budgets are our value statements. We have to leverage funding with parent voices as leads for budgets, not as afterthoughts. So often we hear, well, there isn't any money in the budget. We can't pay our people with lived experience. And yet we're saying, make your budget your value statement. Consistent communication and connection with contract managers, with leaders. Departments often have change in leadership. And when that happens, a lot of times the people or parents with lived experience isn't valued at the same level. So we talk about consistent communication and connection. And then we talk about providing consistent training to support parent leadership, to engage and understand the different initiatives and bring a sense of connection and community ownership. They are coming to the table with such wisdom, and that is valued. And yet we do have a leadership interactive training we do with them so that everyone feels that when we show up at the table, we know why we're here, we know what is expected of us, and we feel comfortable and confident. We never send parents out alone or people with lived experience. We always make sure there's a few of them at the table because there's a lot of professionals at the table most of the time. So we want to make sure we're there together. And also as far as the compensation, we'll get to that and what that looks like. So thank you. Can we move to the next slide? And Jackie, here's the team.
Thank you. So here I want to introduce our amazing team of parents with lived experience. And really, we are parents with cross-sector lived experience and with professional experience. And what makes our parent voice team unique is that we have parents who have helped us navigate a variety of family service agencies, such as child family services, foster to adopt, probation, special education, domestic violence survivors, and housing insecurity, and much more. So we're happy to introduce or to show you our current team of amazing parents with lived experience. Next slide.
I see in the box a great question. Do the parents work in other community work, nonprofit or county? And do they work with current parents in struggles? And in Ventura County, that is the model. I believe, Alyssa, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, we do work collaboratively with our community-based organizations and our county governmental agencies. We do a lot of work with our juvenile justice system, helping families navigate our care system. So the reason our team is so diverse is whatever concern comes forth in the community from parents who are going through struggles, we can lean into our team and ask, who do we believe is a great partner who can help this family navigate this system? So this is just a brief glance at the levels of participation. All parent leaders are provided with training and ongoing administrative support. That has been really held strongly in our community, and our parent leaders or people with lived experience say it's important that there's support around us and lifting us, not just saying, here you are, your parent leaders, go out and do it, but really you're an important part of the team as a whole. So just briefly, we have the core member, we have a team member, we have a parent navigator, we have a parent participant, and then we have what's called as an agency partner. And basically those are just different levels that people can get involved, because not everyone can get involved at the same level all the time. So Jackie, I don't know if we wanted to do a brief discussion.
Yeah, sure. So the core member will participate. It's sort of the highest level. They'll participate in a variety of internal and external meaningful engagement opportunities, such as attending the monthly meetings. They'll provide feedback on committee meetings, support for trainings, workshops, presentations, resources for families. They'll engage in our social connections meetings and other meaningful engagement opportunities, which you'll hear us refer to as MEOs in this presentation. Our team members will provide a stipend. A team member may not be as active as a core member, but they participate when they're available. These members are still a big part of our team and will receive a stipend for most meals, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then the parent navigator, they may not be as available to attend team meetings, but they provide much value to the team by helping the other parents navigate through a struggle that is similar to their own lived experience, such as advocating for their child's educational rights or helping a parent navigate the foster care to adoption system. And then we have our parent participant, which is really the community that we're reaching out to and receiving feedback from. They attend our workshops, educational trainings, and community networking opportunities. Their participation is really balanced with full-time work and family life. And then last, we have the agency partner, and the agency partner really plays a critical role in this success because they bring the parent voice to the professional table for system change. So yeah.
Thank you, Jackie. And we will in a moment. I'm sorry, Jackie, did I cut you off there?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Jackie and I coordinated this, but sometimes we're jumping in. So here's just a quick glance. When we say MEO, that means meaningful engagement opportunity. And in Ventura County, and I know in other counties, we use that terminology to differentiate. Our parents really are respected and valued. So the opportunities that come forward, we say, we want to know what's the meaning. Why are we being invited to the table? We want to sit at the table and be heard and seen and contribute. So we have what's called an MEO form. And before I ask the team to show the form briefly, we have both internal and external MEO opportunities. And Jackie, I'm just going to pull out a few samples of this before we invite Lori to share the form. But you could see internally, our parent voices monitor and mentor our youth voices. They help the young people use their voice and come to the table in the same structure that we do with our parent voices. We have Strengthening Families collaboratives where parents with lived experience and expertise join the table and speak to all of our community-based and county agencies. And we are invited to different events in the community that are educational or they're resource-based, and we have parents as leaders at those tables. And then we call an external meaningful engagement opportunity something like today's statewide conference. When we're invited, our parents are here. And Jackie and I are here side by side. She's representing the parent voice. I'm representing that executive team so that we're always standing united. We get invited to review policies, to engage parents in important surveys, to be part of the Child, Youth, and Family Wellness Collaborative in our county, to be part of this prevention committee and community. So just a quick glance at what we would call some internal or external. The internal is done day in and day out with our teams, and then the external is our community. And Lori, just brief, we're going to take a look. I think Kathy was going to pull up and just a brief look at what a form looks like. So and then we're going to do a quick walkthrough, but you can see we have this on a Google document, and this is a request form. So when a community-based partner, an agency wants to have parents at the table, they fill out this form and they help us understand. And if you just want to scroll down a little bit, you can see where we ask, what is the engagement opportunity? We talk about location. Is it virtual? Is it in person? Is it a hybrid? We'll talk about dates and times. How long are you inviting a parent to have a voice at the table? Is it just one meeting, or this will last longer? Like, for example, 6-month commitment or a year. And so we really try to lay out the information so that the parents are prepared to put this into their lives, onto their calendars, and to participate with meaning. So we talk about contact information and really keeping that connection going and building the relationship. So thank you, Lori and Kathy. We just wanted them to see, and questions may come up regarding that. And then Jackie will jump back into our slides here once they come back. We really wanted to walk you through what it looks like from beginning to end when there's a request for an engagement. And we could go, oh, thank you, Lori. So we just tried to do a simplified visual infograph for you. So for example, you just saw, how does a parent with lived expertise or experience come to the table? Well, there's the meaningful engagement request form that is submitted online. Then our core parent leaders, as Jackie described, they go ahead and review the request together. So they're making the decision, who is the best voice to be at the table, who feels the most comfortable, who has the most interest. And then parents with lived experience are chosen to participate. And again, they're chosen in teams. They're not sent out alone. Next slide. Jackie, did you want to explain the parent voice stipend form that I think they'll pull up next?
Sure.
Kathleen and Jackie, could I interrupt you guys for a sec? Just a quick, there was a question on how long is the duration that you work with a family. I just want to make sure that Alyssa's question was answered on that, or if we need to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Absolutely. So we're not going deeply today into one of our primary programs, which is called our network of care. And when a family is referred and they're going through adverse challenges or struggles, they will be referred to our network of care. And once they're referred, the network of care is there as long as they want to be connected. So sometimes it's simply we connect them to a handful of resources in a warm handoff manner. We find them, we meet them right where they are. I've heard it said by San Diego, we don't need to know your whole life story. We need to know right where you are. How do we help you with concrete support in times of need? And that might be, that might take 3 weeks, that might take 3 months, that might take 6 months. But what we've learned through our network of care is because we are relationship based, those families will come back to our team of care navigators. And as long as they reach back out or they say, hey, we need help, our team is there. So there isn't really a definitive timeline. It's more about they might shift from a level of a care navigator working with them on a regular basis to working with them on a less frequent basis to we are here to support and walk with you with resilience and strength along the way. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you. And then Jackie, we'll just let them know that this exists.
Yes, so this is our parent voice stipend form, and we do one every quarter. And so really this is once a parent has finished their meaningful engagement opportunity, they'll go ahead and fill this out. And, we like to pay our parents as soon as possible. We don't like them waiting. We don't want them waiting, too long, because, again, we want to honor their time and pay them right away. And so these are some of the basic information. We'll ask what the name of the MEO was, the date of the MEO, and then really quickly, I want to point out just some of the questions that we do ask once they complete a meaningful engagement opportunity. And that's, what is one takeaway that you receive from this meaningful engagement opportunity? And then as a parent, what lived experience, how as a parent with lived experience, how were you able to contribute to this MEO, and how were you able to represent the parents' voices? And then at the end, or the third question is, is there something that you would like to share that you feel can improve the experience? Because again, our parents go into these committees and they provide their feedback. We want to know what could have been better, and that includes our internal meaningful engagement opportunities as well. And then finally they'll be get the chance to say how they want to be paid. Do they want to be paid by direct deposit, or do they want a gift card? Do they want a physical gift card or an e-gift card? And again, once these are processed and we're on top of just paying them right away. So thank you,
Jackie,
Lori.
I love and appreciate that you pointed out, and we can bring back up the PowerPoint to kind of wrap up some of the key components. But I love that you pointed out, we have a very structured, but I'd say simple, facilitated system in place so that parents are heard, respected, and paid by the end of the day, if we can make that happen. But it's the county agencies that we work with that make their budget, their value statement. They work with us and they'll make sure we have the funding needed when they're requesting these parent leaders to come out into their meetings and their policy tables, that we're ready to pay them right away. We don't want it to get caught up in a lot of red tape, which has happened historically. Every time a parent is invited, we'll provide them as much insight into the purpose of the meaningful engagement opportunity. Just like all of us want to be prepared when we go to a meeting, we make sure they feel prepared to go. The core team and the parent participants discuss the agreed upon stipend. So I know the question came up earlier. Our parent voice leaders are not paid per hour. They're paid more based on what is being asked of them and what is the duration of time. At a minimum, if they're asked to fill out a survey, and the survey might take 10 to 15 minutes, but the county or a community partner says, we really need to hear from 100 parents, we still pay them for that 15 minutes, right? But that might look like a gift card. That's a lesser amount. But anything we invite them to, that is anything between 0 and 2 hours. So if it's 30 minutes, if it's 45 minutes, if it's 1 hour, if it's 2 hours, it's a base rate of $50. That's not by hour, because they get $50 even if they're there for 45 minutes. But if they're there for 2 hours, they'll get $50. But anything above 2 hours in our budget line item, we create that stipend place that we can pay them additional money. So parents who may come to an external engagement opportunity like a statewide conference, they're not paid by the hour, but there's agreed upon amount that we discuss with them. And when our community partners invite us to bring parents to their programs, again, we talk to them. What is the commitment? How long do you need them? And what is the stipend you want to pay? And we will make sure that it's agreed upon by the parents who are participating. And that's really key. So I hope that answers the amount that they're paid. And then we can go on to the next slide.
So I know
then
we were
Jack-
given just a 2-minute warning, but just, continuing our stipend process here. The parents will choose how they want, and we kind of reviewed some of this in the form. They'll choose how they want to be paid. And, if they want a gift card or an e-gift card, and all of our stipends are tracked through our accounting department. So next slide. And so thank you. I don't know how much time we have for question and answers, but we can put our email into the chat box for any follow-up questions. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathleen and Jackie. This is great information that you shared with us. So we do have a few minutes for some questions. So feel free, folks, to put some questions in the chat, or I believe you'll have the ability to unmute as well. But I just want to throw one question out there for everyone, for all the panelists, that for a jurisdiction who may be thinking about starting up this work, what's one recommendation that you could provide or offer to that jurisdiction or to those folks who are just starting out in this work? That's for all of our panelists.
I can kick us off. I would say first be really clear on why you want to engage lived experts, and in what capacity. Because I think our two presentations, like our values seem very similar, but how we operationalize it is really different, and it's responsive to what the communities are needing. So I think being really clear on that, and then co-designing with lived experts would be my recommendations.
I'm going to let you answer that, Kathleen.
Okay, yes, I was just going to say, I'm in total agreement, and the co-design is the key component. Recognizing and being responsive to what the community is asking. And so we have a handful of different projects that our parent voice team is all aware of. But again, they're sent out to do the work in the community and use their voice according to the needs and according to how they feel comfortable and believe that they can contribute. So it's a relationship building opportunity for sure.
Great, thank you all. Does anybody have any other questions for our panelists? And I will say that we had some additional panelists to join us who unfortunately could not join us today. And I believe they will be adding to a recording to this presentation. So all the workshops are being recorded, and all registrants will receive an email within another day or two with a link to all the recordings. And we're hoping that their presentation will be added to this recording as well. So I wanted to add that in there for folks. So
And
that
while
you
you're
know.
thinking of other questions, I'll just mention that the QR code on the screen here, if you take your camera or smart device and capture that, you can give us your information, and we will send you a brief on care and compensation for lived experts that we're formulating based on the presentation and materials that you've heard today. And we'll also be incorporating the UC Davis and CDSS collaboration there. They've been leading the statewide Parent Voice Advisory Council, and so they'll have a unique perspective and additional tools as well.
Thank you, Laurie. So again, thank you, Amy, Ariane, Kathleen, and Jackie for this valuable information. And we definitely appreciate your time and your insight and sharing this with folks. So thank you again for joining us. And we hope everybody enjoys the rest of the convening, rest of today and tomorrow. And take care, everybody.
So
Thank
thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye. Be safe.